Oh, so hot. It's over 100 degrees out here. I need water. Oh, water's gone. I don't know where I'll find some water. I'm gonna get out of here before I get heat stroke. Oh, got some Wi-Fi, it's okay. All is good in the world. So today we're going to be talking about heat stroke. Heat stroke kills up to 71% of the people who get it. Lightning only kills 10%. Heat stroke is deadly. Now, in the United States, typically only about 300 people die every year from heat stroke. That's a significant number, and you don't want to be one of those. So the first question today, what is heat stroke to begin with? Well, really the definition of heat stroke is just when your body's temperature gets higher than your ability to regulate. So you overheat, like a car. That same concept is happening in your body when you get heat stroke. You have a thermal regulator in your body. It's called your hypothalamus, and your hypothalamus is what controls the core temperature. It's basically a thermostat, and your thermostat should be set at roughly 98.6 degrees plus or minus. But if your body can't maintain that and your core temperature goes above 99.5, it's called hyperthermia. It's the opposite of hypothermia. And if you get hyperthermia and you can't bring that down, it's heat stroke. And you'll probably die unless you can get some immediate treatment. No good. So there's a lot of things leading up to heat stroke. First of all, it's got to be hot. It's really hot out here right now. It's like triple digits. And it doesn't have to be that hot. It just has to be hot enough that your body temperature will rise. So it doesn't even have to be 98.6 degrees or higher. It could be 70 degrees for all intents and purposes. But if your body can't get rid of the heat that it generates, then you're going to get some heat stroke. So that brings me to the first part of this. Your body generates a lot of heat, especially metabolic muscular heat. When your muscles move, when you're running, when you're out cross-country skiing, whatever you're doing, your body's generating a lot of heat. And it's trying to get rid of it. There's 4 ways your body gets rid of that heat. The first is evaporation. The second is convection. The third is conduction, and then radiation. The number 1 way our bodies get rid of heat is evaporation. That's this stuff right here, sweat. Our bodies sweat. We perspire out of all of our pores. Interesting story. Once I was diagnosed with hyperhidrosis. That means I sweat a lot. You can see it right here. So I've got an awesome cooling system. Our bodies sweat, and as that water evaporates off our skin, it's a phase change. Changes from a liquid to a gas. And that transition from a liquid to a gas uses energy. That energy comes from the heat in our body. So all the water that's evaporating off of us takes heat with it. Pretty cool. It's kind of like a swamp cooler. You know, the swamp coolers, they work better in dry conditions. If you're in a humid area, Florida or Texas or somewhere like that, evaporation isn't going to be as effective as if you're out here in Utah. So evaporation is the number 1. The second is convection. So I'm out here and there's not really much of a breeze at all. You can see there's a little bit of a breeze right now. That grass is blowing. But pretty much it's dead. When that wind blows, it feels really good because that wind is pulling more heat off of me. That's convection, like your convection oven. That's kind of like a convection oven. The air circulates, the circulating air is able to transmit heat. It transfers the heat from one object to another. So the wind blows across me and it takes the heat with it. The third is conduction. if I touch this hot sand down here, that's conduction. The hot sand is transferring heat to my body. That's not what I want out here. And I have not a lot of options for things that are cooler than me out here on a hot day like this. But conduction is when heat is transferred through solid objects, through touch. And the fourth is radiation, and that's kind of like, you know, a campfire or this blazing sun. It's giving heat to me. Our bodies are doing the same thing. They're releasing heat into the surrounding environment around us. Even if there's no air circulating, our bodies will radiate heat. Not a ton, but they're radiating heat. So those four ways are the ways our bodies cool off. And if those don't work well enough to get rid of all the heat, we're going to get too hot and we'll get heat stroke. So there's two types of heat stroke. The first is exertional heat stroke, and that's when you're out running around. That's typical of you guys, you know, all of us adventurers. We're out here in the hot sun day in, day out doing our thing. That's what we're going to get, is exertional heat stroke. The other one is typical of grandma or grandpa. They're sitting at home, the AC isn't quite strong enough. They're not exerting, but they're still getting too hot. The method's the same, everything's the same, but one you're exerting, the other you're not. And so in treating it for exertional, obviously stop exerting. That's generating a lot of extra heat. Okay, there are other heat related illnesses you can get. There's heat exhaustion. That's kind of a step below heat stroke, not quite as severe. You just really stop and rest and you'll be fine. Drink some water. A note, dehydration is different than heat exhaustion or heat stroke. They usually are accompanied because of all the sweat. I'm losing a lot of water that I have to replace, but dehydration can happen in and of itself, and it can happen, and you can get heat stroke without dehydration. So you don't have to have a topped off radiator to stay cool, and vice versa, but certainly helps. And you can also drink cold water that'll cool you a little bit from the inside out if you're too hot. So dehydration is different. The other heat related illnesses you can get are like heat cramps, heat rash. Those are so sweaty. Those are heat illnesses, but they're not that severe. They'll go away on their own if you cool down a bit. But really it's heat stroke. That's the one we want to watch out for. Okay, so heat stroke's when your body can't regulate its temperature. That's different than a fever. If you get a fever, your hypothalamus in your head, the thermostat, it's saying turn the temperature up, and the temperature goes up 99, 100, 101, whatever it is. That's where your body wants to be. The difference between a fever and heat stroke is heat stroke, your body doesn't want to be there. The thermostat is set down here and your body can't keep it down there. So that's the difference between heat stroke and a fever, and that's important to know when you're diagnosing it, because if you've got somebody who's way hot and they've got a temperature and maybe they just have the flu and not heat stroke, but if they have a temperature and they have heat stroke, you need to know that. So this is not something I recommend in your first aid kit, but something you could do. The true way to take a temperature of somebody to test for heat stroke isn't to test their forehead. It's going to be hot. My forehead's going to be really hot right now. I don't have heat stroke. But if you took my rectal temperature, it would give you the true core temperature of my body. That's the only real official way to do it in the field. Sweaty and hot. Rectal temperature. So if you're ever in need of diagnosing someone with heat stroke, you got to go for it. Bring the probe. So what are some of the signs and symptoms of heat stroke? Well, the first obviously is a high temperature. You're going to have elevated core temperature. 99.5 and above is hyperthermia. The others, you're going to get a headache. You're going to be, watch out for this one. You're going to hear this one. It's actually false. Some say you stop sweating. You could stop sweating, but you don't always stop sweating when you have heat stroke. You can continue to sweat profusely and still not be able to cool yourself off. Now, typically when you stop sweating, you're pretty severe, but you can have heat stroke long before that. So don't count on that, and don't listen to people who tell you that. Some of the other signs and symptoms, you're gonna get sort of loopy. You're gonna go stupid, right? Man, there's ants all over me. You're gonna go a bit stupid. So somebody's gonna be loopy. They're gonna start laughing at a vulture flying overhead. That's really funny. Well, it's not really that funny, but watch for that, and watch for dizziness, nausea, vomiting. Those are the symptoms you're gonna get with heat stroke. Also, you're gonna get things like low blood pressure. That's a really scary one. What your body tries to do is sending a lot of vasodilation out, and your veins, your arteries are just getting big, filling with blood and fluid, because your body's trying to send all this fluid to the surface to cool off. If I have blood flowing through my ears, it's going to cool a lot easier than if it's flowing through here. Opposite happens in wintertime when you go numb and tingly. That's because the blood is restricted. So vasodilation, that also leads to swelling. So you're going to see your hands and feet swell up, your face may swell up, you get puffy, and that can lead to hypotension or low blood pressure, which it can be very dangerous too. That can lead to, that's one of the main problems with shock, and that's one of the ways that you die with heat stroke is your blood pressure just falls and you can't maintain vital organs, and boom. So keep an eye on that swelling. If you notice that your hands and feet are starting to get all puffy and big, it's time to chill. So you got somebody with you in your group and you conclude that they have heat stroke. What do? Well, it's kind of obvious. Cool them off. How you do that, there's a lot of ways, but the main way is water. Evaporation, right? Water is also really good heat transfer. It's really good at conduction and those sorts of things. So you get them in water. If you take them to the ER, they're going to throw them in a cold shower, in an ice bath, things like that. And you're going to read, be careful, don't cool them off too fast. You can't really go too fast. The fear is that they're going to start to shiver. They're going to get too cold and shiver. Just watch for that. If they start shivering, obviously stop. The reason you don't want them to shiver is because that's generating more heat. So yeah, you can over cool them, I guess, but you're not going to do that out in the field. You may do that if you take them home and throw them in an ice bath. So cool them off, get them in the shade, take them down to the river, jump in the river, jump in the lake, dump your water on them. There's some key points here. There's spots on our bodies, like see this right here? Yeah, see that right there? All those veins and arteries. They're gonna cool off better. Things like this, behind your leg, right there. Those spots up on your ears, they're very, lots of exposed vessels. They're gonna cool off a lot faster on the back or the front of your neck. Areas like that, if you put ice packs on there, cold water, it's going to be more effective than if you just dump it on top of their head. That'll work too, but try to put it on specific spots. Take their shoes and socks off. Feet will cool off too. Get a breeze blowing. That's that whole convection thing, right? So you get a breeze blowing, you get them wet, they're going to cool off. But make sure you keep them in the shade if it's a really sunny day like it is out here. Obviously, I'm stupid hot out here. So that's about it for heat stroke. Watch out for it. Don't die from heat stroke. It'd be a bad thing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say. Oh, please subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of good content coming your way. Field reports, some of the science behind why we do the activities we do and how we do them. And then trip reports. Obviously, we're going to do trip reports. I'm always out playing. Got one coming your way from a sweet southern Utah canyoneering adventure I did with my family, so subscribe for that.